Hello, sir. We got a call that you're threatening the staff.
Officer, I'm not threatening anybody. I'm just trying to buy medicine for my wife. She's very sick.
That doesn't matter. Turn around and put your hands behind your back.
This is a mistake. I used to run this hospital. I worked here for 30 years.
I don't care what you used to do. You don't belong here.
The security camera mounted on the corner of the medical plaza had been recording the same quiet routine for years. Patients came and went. Delivery trucks stopped briefly, then pulled away. Staff members stepped outside for phone calls or fresh air before returning to work. Nothing about that afternoon suggested it would become evidence in a lawsuit that would later cost the city millions. The footage shows the elderly black man first, moving slowly along the sidewalk with the help of a cane. He pauses once near the entrance, not out of confusion, but to adjust his grip on a small medical supply bag and a thin folder of paperwork tucked under his arm. His posture is careful and deliberate, the way someone moves when every step has to be measured. He looks tired, but focused, and there is nothing hurried or aggressive about him. This is not a man wandering, this is a man on an errand. Inside the folder are prescriptions, insurance forms, and discharge instructions. His wife has been sick for months, in and out of appointments, struggling with complications that have drained both her strength and his. He is here because the clinic told him the equipment was ready. He is here because she cannot come herself. He is here because, after decades of running hospitals and solving problems for other people, this is now his responsibility. A white police officer enters the frame from the far side of the parking lot. He does not appear rushed. He does not appear cautious either. His pace is steady, purposeful, and his eyes lock onto the elderly man almost immediately. The officer's posture is rigid, shoulders squared, chin lifted slightly in the way officers are taught when they believe they are about to assert control rather than ask questions. The camera captures the moment their paths intersect. The officer steps closer than necessary, cutting into the man's personal space. The elderly man turns his head slowly, clearly surprised, but not alarmed. He shifts, his cane slightly, ensuring it stays planted, and looks up to meet the officer's gaze. The officer speaks first. There is no greeting, no introduction, no attempt to explain who he is or why he is there. He goes straight to the accusation. Someone called. Someone said you were threatening staff. Someone claimed you were a problem. The words hang there, unsupported by anything the camera can see. The man's response is calm, measured, and immediate. He is not threatening anyone. He is trying to buy medicine for his wife. She is very sick. He even gestures slightly toward the folder, a reflexive motion, as if evidence should matter. This is the first moment where the situation could have ended. A normal officer would have asked a follow-up question. Who called? Which staff member? What exactly was said? A normal officer would have glanced at the paperwork, spoken to the clinic receptionist, or at least slowed the interaction down. None of that happens. The officer does not look at the folder. He does not turn his head toward the clinic doors. He does not ask the man to explain further. Instead, his tone hardens, and the words shift from accusation to command. It doesn't matter. Turn around. Put your hands behind your back. The escalation is immediate and unjustified. The elderly man stiffens slightly, not in resistance, but in disbelief. His voice remains steady as he tells the officer this is a mistake. He explains, briefly and without arrogance, that he used to run this hospital. He worked here for 30 years. The line is not delivered as a threat. It is delivered as context, as if shared history should mean something. The officer's response is dismissive and final. He does not care what the man used to do. He tells him he does not belong here. That sentence changes everything. Belonging is no longer about paperwork or purpose. It is about perception. It is about who the officer believes has the right to exist in that space without explanation. In the background, the camera catches movement. A nurse near the entrance slows, watching the interaction with concern. A delivery driver pushing a cart hesitates, eyes fixed on the officer's hand as it moves closer to the man's arm. Another person on the sidewalk raises a phone, instinctively sensing that what is happening does not look right. The elderly man does not raise his voice. He does not step back or step forward. His hands remain visible, one resting on the cane, the other holding the folder. He does not resist when the officer reaches for him. There is no sudden motion, no struggle, no aggression. Despite that, the officer grabs his arm. The moment is subtle on camera, but unmistakable. The officer's hand closes around the man's sleeve, and his body turns slightly, positioning himself to apply control. The man winces, more from surprise than pain, and instinctively tightens his grip on the cane to steady himself. The officer's mouth opens, and he shouts the words that appear in countless police reports every year. "Stop resisting." The camera tells a different story. There is no resistance. There is only an elderly man trying to keep his balance while being handled by someone younger, stronger, and fully aware of the authority he carries. The officer's voice is loud enough that people across the parking lot turn to look. Phones are now clearly visible, held chest high and pointed toward the scene. Handcuffs come out. As the metal closes around the man's wrists, his shoulders tense and his face tightens. The cuffs are applied behind his back, forcing his arms into a position that is painful even for someone without mobility issues. For him, it is worse. The camera captures the slight bend in his posture, the careful adjustment of his feet as he tries not to fall. No one steps in, no one stops it. The officer guides him toward the patrol car, one hand on the man's arm, the other hovering near his belt. The elderly man moves slowly, deliberately, each step measured. He does not argue now, he does not plead. His eyes flick briefly toward the security camera above them, then toward the phones in the crowd. He understands what this is becoming. If you're watching this story unfold, take a moment right now to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment. Subscribing doesn't cost anything, and it helps stories like this reach people who need to see them. The patrol car door opens, and the man is helped inside, though the help feels more like a necessity than a courtesy. The door closes with a heavy sound that echoes slightly in the quiet lot. The officer walks around to the driver's seat, his posture unchanged, his expression unreadable from this distance. The camera keeps recording. Inside the patrol car, unseen by the security camera, but critical to what follows, the elderly man sits in silence. The cuffs dig into his wrists. His shoulders ache. His thoughts, however, are clear. He knows exactly how wrong this is, not just legally, but procedurally. He spent years overseeing hospital systems, managing risk, reviewing incident reports, and understanding how small failures cascade into major consequences. He also knows something else. This will not end quietly. The officer pulls out of the parking lot without lights or sirens, just another routine transport in his mind. To the people watching from the sidewalk, it looks like an arrest that should never have happened. To the nurse still standing near the door, it feels like something she will talk about later, her voice tight with frustration. To the person holding the phone, it feels like proof. At the station, the story will begin to unravel. Not immediately, and not easily, but inevitably. The paperwork will not match the footage. The accusation will not survive scrutiny. The claim that a frail, elderly man threatened staff will collapse under the weight of video, witnesses, and common sense. But for now, the city does not know what it has just bought itself. The elderly man does not yet know the exact dollar amount either, but he understands the scale. He has sat in conference rooms where numbers like this were discussed in hushed tones. He has watched institutions scramble to contain damage they created through arrogance and impatience. This arrest, captured by a fixed security camera on a quiet afternoon, is the beginning of that process. And before the day is over, the city will realize that arresting a former hospital CEO who was simply trying to care for his sick wife was not just wrong. The patrol car rolls through the city streets without lights or sirens, moving with the quiet confidence of an arrest the officer believes will never be questioned. Traffic flows around them normally. Pedestrians wait at crosswalks. Storefronts pass by in a slow, indifferent blur. From the outside, nothing about this moment looks unusual. Inside the car, however, everything has already gone wrong. The elderly man sits in the back seat, his hands cuffed behind him, the metal pressing into skin that has grown thinner with age. Every small bump in the road sends a dull ache through his shoulders. He adjusts his posture carefully, inch by inch, trying to find a position that won't aggravate his joints or throw off his balance. The cane he relies on is gone now, left behind near the clinic entrance, another quiet detail that will matter later. He does not speak, not because he has nothing to say, but because he understands the futility of arguing at this moment. Years ago, when he was still running hospitals, he learned that timing matters. Some conversations only become productive after the immediate crisis passes. Right now, this officer is committed to the version of events he has already decided on. In the front seat, the officer grips the steering wheel a little tighter than before. He glances at the rearview mirror once, then again. Each time, his eyes meet the calm, steady gaze of the man behind him. There is no fear there, no panic, just watchfulness. It unsettles him more than shouting ever would. "So," the officer says finally, breaking the silence, "you said you used to run this hospital." The elderly man answers evenly, "Yes." "When was that?" "For a long time," he replies. "Long enough to know this didn't need to happen." The officer snorts softly, shaking his head. Everyone's something these days. The dismissal is automatic, reflexive. The officer has learned to neutralize claims of status quickly. Titles complicate things. Titles slow things down. And slowing down is not what he wants right now. He wants to get to the station, write the report, and move on. What he does not realize is that this man has spent decades dealing with crises far more complex than this one. He has overseen emergency departments during mass casualty events. He has managed outbreaks, lawsuits, regulatory inspections, and internal scandals that threaten to shut entire facilities down. Compared to those moments, this arrest is small, personally humiliating, physically uncomfortable, yes, but operationally simple. That understanding gives him patience. They arrive at the police station just under 15 minutes later. The Sallyport door rises, then closes behind the patrol car, sealing them into the concrete space with a hollow echo. Fluorescent lights flicker overhead, washing everything in a pale, unflattering glow. The officer steps out first, then opens the rear door. "Watch your step," he says, the words routine rather than caring. The elderly man steps out carefully, pausing for a second to steady himself. Without his cane, the movement is awkward, and for a brief moment his balance wavers. The officer places a hand on his arm, not gently, but firmly enough to remind him who is in control. Inside the booking area, the mood is subdued. Officers move through their routines without much interest in the latest arrival. An older black man in handcuffs does not, on its own, stand out. At least, not yet. The desk officer looks up, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Name?" The elderly man gives it. "Charges?" the desk officer asks, eyes shifting to the arresting officer. "Threatening staff. Disorderly conduct," the officer says without hesitation. The words land with more confidence than accuracy. The desk officer pauses, glancing between the two men. Something about the scene doesn't quite fit. The man in cuffs is dressed neatly, his posture controlled despite obvious discomfort. He does not look agitated. He does not look confused. He looks composed. "Any weapons?" the desk officer asks. "No," the officer replies. "Any injuries?" "No." The elderly man clears his throat. "My shoulders are in pain," he says calmly, "and I need my cane." The desk officer nods slowly, making a note. "We'll see what we can do." The officer removes the cuffs, replacing them with a set of flex restraints for processing. The relief is minimal. The damage is already done. As the desk officer begins entering information into the system, another officer nearby glances over, then does a double take. "Wait," he says quietly. "Is that—" The sentence trails off as he studies the man's face more carefully. The elderly man meets his eyes, not challenging, just acknowledging. Recognition flickers. The officer steps closer to the desk. "Sir," he says cautiously, "did you say you used to run the hospital?" "Yes," the man replies. "Which one?" "This one," he says, "and two others in the region." The room shifts. It's subtle at first. A pause in typing. A glance exchanged between officers. The desk officer's fingers stop mid-keystroke. Experience has taught them that some arrests require a second look. A supervisor is called. Lieutenant Harris arrives moments later, a woman in her early 50s, with a reputation for being thorough and unimpressed by excuses. She listens as the arresting officer summarizes the incident, his version clipped and rehearsed. A call came in. The man was threatening staff. He refused to leave. He was uncooperative. Harris turns to the elderly man. "Sir?" He repeats his explanation, word for word, without embellishment. "He came to buy medicine for his wife. She is very sick. He had paperwork. He was arrested without anyone checking it." Harris studies him carefully. She has seen enough false confidence to recognize the difference between arrogance and certainty. This man is not bluffing. "Do you have identification?" she asks. "Yes," he says. "In my wallet. It was taken from me." The officer hesitates, then produces the wallet. Harris flips it open, scanning the contents. Driver's license, insurance cards, and then, tucked behind them, a laminated credential. Her expression changes. She pulls it out slowly, reading it twice to be sure. Then she looks up. "You were the CEO," she says, quietly. The elderly man nods once. The room goes silent. Harris exhales through her nose, a long, controlled breath. She hands the wallet back to him. "So remove the restraints," she says. The officer freezes. "Lieutenant, now," she repeats. The restraints are removed. The man rubs his wrists gently, red marks already visible. Harris gestures toward a chair, but he remains standing. It is a small act, but a deliberate one. "I want to see the security footage," Harris says, turning back to the officer. "And I want to see your body camera." "There's no body cam," he replies quickly. "Security camera only." "Then pull it," she says. "All of it." While another officer begins retrieving the footage, Harris lowers her voice. "You understand how serious this is, right?" "Yes, ma'am," the officer says, though the certainty is gone now. "Do you?" she presses. "Because if what he's saying is accurate, this isn't just a bad arrest. This is a lawsuit." The footage plays on a monitor in a side room. Everyone watches. No one speaks. They see the elderly man arrive. They see him standing calmly. They see the officer approach. They hear the accusation. They watch the immediate escalation, the lack of investigation, the grab, the handcuffs, the shouted claim of resistance where none exists. When the video ends, Harris does not look at the officer right away. She looks at the man. "I'm sorry," she says. "This should not have happened." The apology is professional, not personal, but it matters. "I want everything preserved," the man says. "Every report, every call, every piece of footage." Harris nods. "It will be." The officer is asked to step outside. What happens next does not unfold publicly, not yet. Internally, however, the machinery has already started turning. Internal Affairs is notified. The city attorney's office is alerted. A preservation notice is drafted before the man even leaves the building. When he finally steps back outside, escorted this time not as a suspect, but as a wronged citizen, the sun is already lower in the sky. His phone has dozens of missed calls, messages from his wife's care team, from colleagues who have already seen clips of the arrest circulating online. The video has spread faster than anyone anticipated. By morning, local news stations are calling it a disturbing incident. By afternoon, national outlets had picked it up. The headline is blunt. Former hospital CEO arrested while trying to buy medicine for sick wife. The city issues a short statement promising an investigation. It is not enough. If you're still watching, take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Subscribing is free, and it helps make sure stories like this don't disappear quietly. Behind closed doors, the city's legal team reviews the footage in silence. No one tries to defend it. No one argues interpretation. The facts are too clear. A meeting is scheduled, then another. By the end of the week, the word settlement is already being spoken aloud. The arresting officer goes home each night knowing something fundamental has shifted. He replays the moment in his head, the way the man looked at him in the rearview mirror. Calm, certain, unafraid. He realizes too late that this was never going to be just another arrest. It was the beginning of the end. By the time the sun rose the next morning, the story was no longer contained within the walls of the police department. It had moved beyond internal reviews and hushed conversations in administrative offices. It had entered the public bloodstream, where facts move faster than explanations and images carry more weight than statements ever could. The security camera footage from the medical plaza spread first. Grainy, fixed, emotionless, and devastating. Viewers did not need commentary to understand what they were seeing. An elderly black man, clearly frail, clearly calm, approached by an officer who never slowed down, never verified anything, and never gave the situation a chance to resolve peacefully. The absence of drama made it worse. There was no shouting match, no chaotic scene, no threat that could be pointed to after the fact. Just an unjustified arrest unfolding in real time. Within hours, local news stations picked it up. By midday, national outlets were calling. The headline hardened into something no public relations team could soften. Former hospital CEO wrongfully arrested while trying to get medicine for sick wife. The city released a statement early that afternoon. It was careful, legally sanitized, and empty. They were aware of the incident. They were reviewing the matter. They took allegations seriously. The officer had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. It satisfied no one. Inside City Hall, the mood shifted from procedural concern to open anxiety. Senior administrators gathered in a conference room with the city attorney and risk management staff. The video played again, projected onto a screen that made every misstep larger than life. No one spoke during the first viewing. No one needed to. The city attorney broke the silence. This is indefensible. There was no disagreement. They reviewed the timeline, the initial call, the lack of corroboration, the officer's failure to verify anything, the immediate escalation, the false claim of resistance. Each point was a liability. Together, they were catastrophic. Someone asked the question no one wanted to answer. Do we know who he is? Yes, the attorney said, and that makes this worse. They already knew what was coming. A lawsuit was inevitable, but this would not be a routine claim quietly settled months down the line. This was a man who understood institutions, liability, and exposure better than most of the people in that room. He had spent decades managing risk, overseeing compliance, and navigating crises that threatened to bring entire hospital systems to their knees. He would not bluff. He would not posture. He would let the evidence speak. And the evidence was brutal. That afternoon, the officer involved was called into an internal affairs interview. He arrived with union representation, posture stiff, jaw clenched. The confidence he carried during the arrest was gone, replaced by something brittle. The investigators began calmly, methodically, the way professionals do when the outcome is already clear. They asked him to walk through the incident step by step. He repeated his version. A call came in. The suspect was threatening staff. He approached. The suspect was uncooperative. The situation escalated. They did not challenge him immediately. Instead, they played the video. They watched it once in silence, then again, stopping at key moments. The lack of investigation, the lack of questions, the moment where the officer said, "That doesn't matter," when the man explained why he was there. The instant jump to commands, physical contact, the shout of "Stop resisting!" An investigator paused the footage. "Show us where he resists." The officer leaned forward, eyes locked on the frozen frame. The elderly man's body was still. His hands were visible. His posture was rigid only in the sense that he was trying not to fall. "I perceived resistance," the officer said. "That's not what we asked," the investigator replied. "Show us where it occurs." There was no answer. The investigators moved on to the report. They read his written statements aloud, line by line, then compared them to the footage. Each discrepancy was noted, each exaggeration documented, each omission highlighted. The narrative he had written to justify his actions did not survive contact with video. When the interview ended, the officer left knowing something had broken. Not just his credibility, but the illusion that this could be explained away as a misunderstanding. While internal affairs worked, the man at the center of it all moved quietly. He did not give interviews. He did not hold a press conference. He went home, checked on his wife, made sure her medication was delivered, and then met with counsel. The legal team he assembled was not flashy. They did not posture or threaten. They sent a single document to the city that same evening, a preservation notice. It demanded that all evidence related to the arrest be retained in its entirety. Security footage, dispatch logs, officer reports, internal communications, training records, prior complaints. It was the opening move of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. The lawsuit was filed less than a week later. It was detailed, clinical, and devastating. It laid out the facts with precision, citing timestamps from the security footage, language from the officer's report, and policies the department had violated. It did not rely on emotion. It did not exaggerate. It did not need to. The claim was clear. The city, through its officer, had violated the man's constitutional rights. He had been unlawfully detained, falsely arrested, and subjected to excessive force given his age and physical condition. The arrest had no probable cause. The justification was fabricated. The harm was real. The damages requested were significant. The city's legal team read the filing in silence. No one suggested taking it to trial. No one believed a jury would side with them. The video alone made that impossible. Add to that the man's background, his calm demeanor, his lack of any criminal behavior, and the optics were devastating. Settlement discussions began almost immediately. At first, the city floated a lower number, hoping to resolve it quietly. The man's legal team did not counter. They simply waited. More footage emerged, bystander videos, a clearer angle showing the officer's hand gripping the man's arm, another clip capturing the nurse shaking her head in disbelief. Public pressure mounted. Civil rights organizations weighed in. Former law enforcement officials criticized the escalation. Medical professionals spoke out about the cruelty of arresting an elderly man trying to care for his sick wife. Each new voice made the city's position weaker. Behind closed doors, the number went up. Internal Affairs completed their investigation. The findings were unequivocal. The officer had violated policy. He had escalated without cause. He had misrepresented the incident in his report. He had used a command associated with resistance where none existed. The report concluded that his actions represented a serious breach of public trust. The recommendation was termination. The officer was called in for a disciplinary hearing. He sat across from command staff, union representatives at his side. The video queued up once more. It played again. The room was quiet except for the sound of his own voice on the recording. When it ended, the chief spoke plainly. There was no anger in his tone, just finality. "You put this department in an impossible position," he said. "You violated policy, procedure, and the law. You exposed the city to extraordinary liability. Your employment is terminated effective immediately." The badge was collected. The ID was surrendered. The career was over. The city moved quickly after that, not out of contrition, but necessity. They announced mandatory retraining, policy reviews, oversight measures. Each announcement sounded proactive, but everyone understood the real motivation: damage control. Settlement negotiations resumed in earnest. The final agreement was reached quietly, signed without ceremony. The city agreed to pay $4.2 million to resolve the lawsuit. No admission of wrongdoing was included, but none was needed. The number spoke for itself. It was one of the largest settlements in the city's history for a wrongful arrest. When the news broke, reactions were swift. Some praised the accountability. Others questioned why it took a lawsuit to achieve it. Many focused on the broader truth the case exposed, that this kind of treatment was routine for people without cameras, status, or resources. The man at the center of it all released a brief statement. He did not celebrate. He did not condemn. He expressed concern. Concern for how easily the system had failed. Concern for how many others had endured similar treatment without recourse. Concern that nothing would truly change once the headlines faded. He directed a portion of the settlement toward advocacy and training programs focused on civil rights and accountability. He returned quietly to his life, to caring for his wife, to the routines that mattered. The security camera continued to record the medical plaza, day after day. Patients came and went. Staff walked in and out. The scene returned to normal, but the footage remained. It was shown in training rooms, in legal seminars, in community meetings, not because of who the man was, but because of what the video showed, how quickly authority could override reason, how easily dignity could be stripped away, how expensive injustice becomes when it is finally confronted. If you stayed with this story to the end, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment about where you're watching from. Subscribing is free, and it helps keep stories like this visible, because accountability only exists when people refuse to look away. This case did not end racism in policing. It did not fix the system, but it left a record, a clear, undeniable record of what happens when power is abused, and what it costs when the truth is finally forced into the light.